All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're tackling something pretty intense. We're diving into the memoirs and analyses of a man known only as the Buyer. And his story? It's a journey into immense suffering and what he describes as a vast global conspiracy.
So, how are we going to unpack all of this? We've broken it down into 6 key sections from his writings. We're going to follow his path, starting with a bizarre legal maneuver and ending with an alleged plot for a new world order.
Everything, and I mean everything in this story, it all hinges on one single, absolutely mind-bending claim about a legal document.
So here's the story he tells. He spent 2 years negotiating for what he thought was just a piece of real estate. But when the ink was dry, he says he realized he'd been tricked. He had inadvertently become the de facto sovereign of the entire Western world.
And you can imagine this, let's call it an unwanted promotion, well, he claims it put a massive target on his back. He says he immediately became the focus of a secret services operation designed to neutralize him for good.
Okay, so if you've just accidentally become king of the world, what's the first thing your enemies are going to do? According to the author, the system's reaction was swift and brutal. They had to make him look crazy.
And here's the chain of events he lays out. It starts in 1998 with him signing this deed. Then there's a violent fight, which he insists was a complete setup by Secret Services just to create an excuse to grab him. And the consequence? He gets locked away indefinitely in a forensic psychiatric unit.
And this is really the core of his argument. For him, the diagnosis wasn't medicine. It was politics. A diagnosis used as a weapon, specifically to nullify his legal standing and block him from ever exercising his contractual rights. So that brings us to where he was sent. And in his view, this place was not a hospital at all. He claims the entire psychiatric facility was just another weapon being used by the state.
He even has a term for it, punitive psychiatry. He's basically saying this is a modern-day gulag, where the goal isn't healing, but political oppression and torture. He draws a direct line to how the Soviet Union used this to silence dissidents.
He flat-out calls the facility Blacksite 2.0, a secret prison hidden in plain sight right in the middle of Berlin. And that one phrase really tells you everything you need to know about his perspective. In his mind, he's not a patient. He's a political prisoner.
All right, now we get into the really grim part. The documents go into excruciating detail about the specific kinds of torment he alleges he went through inside this place. And this wasn't just a bad day here or there. He describes a systematic campaign of torture. Things like being strapped down for days, constant gassing in his cell, being poisoned, sleep deprivation, even just stripping away basic human dignity, like denying him nail clippers for 5 months, or forcing him to freeze as they crank the AC in the winter. Let's talk about that 5-point fixation. That's where your arms, legs, and torso are strapped to a bed. He says after 14 days of this, his muscles had completely wasted away. He couldn't even walk. He claims it was pure, unjustified torture that took him 6 months to recover from. And this is where it gets really twisted. He describes a terrifying catch-22. He claims they were constantly gassing and poisoning him, so naturally he would complain. But then, and this is the trap, they'd write in their official reports, see, the patient has a poisoning fantasy. And that fantasy was then used to justify forcing even more drugs on him. It's an impossible situation.
So this isn't just about his own story. The author uses his experience to launch a full-blown attack on the entire field of psychology and the pharmaceutical industry.
He calls it disease-mongering. He says that psychologists and big pharma are in it together. They work hand in hand to convince you that you have a disease. And then, surprise, surprise, they sell you the snake oil to treat it. He points to the 13 million workdays lost in Germany to psychological stress in just 1 year as proof of just how massive this market for pseudoscience has become.
And when it comes to talk therapy, he's completely dismissive. He says, quote, "The golden words with which one cures madness have simply not yet been invented." His point is that no one has ever been talked out of being truly crazy. He sees therapists as delusional, offering useless advice, like telling a violent patient to imagine wearing a protective cloak.
As for the drugs they forced on him, he claims that for someone who isn't actually crazy, they do nothing but cause horrific side effects. We're talking permanent sedation, chemical castration, drug-induced seizures, and terrifying eye cramps that could last for hours. He calls it the highest form of torture, even worse than the rack, because you can't escape your own poisoned body.
And to show just how broken he thinks this whole system is, he tells the story of another patient he met,
This man was institutionalized for 42 years, since he was 17, for stealing 2 bottles of vodka. And after all that time, after decades of therapy and maximum doses of medication, the author notes the man was still undoubtedly crazy. He was finally released to a hospice where he died 6 months later. For the author, this is proof that the treatments are a complete sham.
So what's the point of all this? After decades of this alleged persecution, what does the author believe is the real endgame?
He calls it the New World Order. According to him, it's a Secret Service's master plan to bring down the entire Western world. And the key, the linchpin of the whole operation, is that 1998 property deed. He believes it was a secret declaration of war by Germany against its NATO allies, a divide-and-conquer strategy on a global scale.
So here's the alleged plan in a nutshell. Sell all of NATO to a private citizen, set him up for a crime, then torture him until he sues in a German court. If he does that, Germany suddenly gains legal jurisdiction over all the other countries. Checkmate. But, he claims, the whole plan has one tiny problem. Him. His steadfast refusal to sue, no matter what they do to him, is the only thing throwing a wrench in their entire operation.
But even though he sees himself as the key, he doesn't sound very hopeful. Ultimately, he feels powerless, believing this conspiracy is a runaway train that's been in motion for decades and will probably succeed, with or without his cooperation.
The writings of the buyer lay out an incredible story of persecution, conspiracy, and immense suffering. It's a worldview that leaves us with a final provocative thought. If a man's mind can be a battlefield, who are the real combatants, and what exactly is the prize?